Elara lived where the sky kissed the earth, with 1,000 shimmering lips, in a valley known as Whisperwind Dale. It wasn't just any valley. It was a cradle of magic, nestled between the ancient, moss-draped peaks of the shimmering mountains and the deep, mysterious expanse of the whispering woods. Her home was carved into a colossal, crystal-veined tree, its branches reaching so high they seemed to brush the very stars, and its roots burrowed deep into soil that glowed softly with embedded moon pearls. From her window, a circular opening draped with gossamer spider silk that caught the faintest breeze, Elara could see the night sky in all its boundless glory. Most children of Whisperwind Dale loved the daylight hours, chasing sun-dappled sprites through meadows of lumiflora and listening to the hum of the crystal streams. But Elara, with her hair the color of twilight shadows and eyes like polished obsidian, found her true joy when the sun dipped below the horizon, and the first star pricked the velvet cloak of night. For Elara, the stars weren't just distant pinpricks of light. They were living, breathing entities, each with its own soft song that only she seemed to hear. Some sang lullabies, others whispered ancient tales, and a few, the brightest ones, hummed with a vibrant, joyful energy that made her own heart feel like it might float right out of her chest. She spent hours tracing constellations, not just the familiar patterns like the great hearth or the river serpent, but her own secret ones, the dancing moth, the silent seeker, the sleepy cloud puff. The magic of Whisperwind Dale was intrinsically linked to these celestial lights. The lumiflora, flowers that bloomed only at night, drew their gentle glow from the starlight. The whisper moss that carpeted the forest floor absorbed it, releasing tiny sparks that danced like fireflies. Even the dreams of the valley folk were said to be woven from starlight, soft and clear and full of gentle wisdom. It was a world bathed in an eternal soft twilight, where the line between day and night was wonderfully blurred by the pervasive, gentle magic. But lately, Elara had noticed a change. It was subtle at first, a mere whisper of difference, like a forgotten note in a familiar song. The stars, which had always seemed to pour their light directly into her soul, felt a little more distant, a little less vibrant. The colors of the lumiflora, once a rich tapestry of sapphire and amethyst, seemed a shade paler. The whisper moss, usually a cheerful carpet of emerald sparks, flickered with a hesitant, almost melancholic light. She watched the twilight sprites, tiny winged creatures of pure light, who usually flitted and twirled with boundless energy. Now, they drifted a little slower, their luminescence a little fainter, like embers cooling in a hearth. Even her own dreams, usually vivid tapestries of flight and forest adventures, had become a little hazy, like looking through a silken veil. The world still hummed with magic, but it felt softer, quieter, as if holding its breath. Elara tried to ask her friends, "Don't the stars seem a little different tonight?" But they would just shrug, lost in their games of hide-and-seek among the glowing roots. "They look like stars, Elara," they'd say with cheerful indifference, just as they always do. She knew then that this dimming was something only she could perceive, a secret shared between her and the fading light. It made her feel both lonely and uniquely burdened. One evening, unable to shake the growing unease, Elara sought out her grandmother, Lyra. Lyra was the eldest in Whisperwind Dale, her skin like ancient parchment, her eyes the color of twilight, and her voice a soft rustle of dry leaves. She was the village storyteller, the keeper of lore, and the one who remembered things that stretched back beyond the memory of the oldest trees. Lyra lived in a hollowed-out willow tree at the very edge of the whispering woods, a place of quiet wisdom. "Grandmother," Elara began, her voice a hesitant whisper, "do you feel it too? The stars, they are not as they once were. The valley's light, it feels weaker." Lyra, who had been stirring a brew of glowberries and dream herbs over a softly crackling hearth, paused. Her eyes, usually full of a twinkling mischief, now held a deep, knowing sadness. She looked at Elara, truly looked at her, as if seeing beyond the girl's shadow hair and into the very core of her luminous spirit. "Ah, Elara," she sighed. "You have always been a child of the deep night. Of course you would be the first to feel it." She gestured for Elara to sit beside her on a cushion woven from moonsilk. The air in Lyra's home was always thick with the scent of ancient wood and forgotten memories. "The stars you see, little one, are but reflections of a greater light, a light that nourishes not just our valley, but the very fabric of existence. It is called the true starlight. Elara leaned closer, her heart thrumming with a mixture of fear and fascination. The true starlight? Yes, Lyra nodded slowly. Long, long ago, when the world was new and raw, a primordial light, brighter than 1,000 suns, poured forth from the heart of the cosmos. This light, the true starlight, settled upon our world, weaving itself into every living thing, every crystal, every dream. It is the source of all magic, all the enchantment. Without it, our world would become a place of muted colors. And what has happened to it? Elara asked, her voice barely audible. Legends say the true starlight is tended by beings of pure light and harmony, the Lumina, Lyra explained, her gaze distant, as if seeing into the past. They are the ancient guardians, living in a realm beyond our sight, ensuring the starlight flows freely, eternally. But the Lumina are elusive, rarely seen even in the oldest tales. And if the starlight truly dims, it means something troubles its source or its flow. Lyra reached for a small, intricately carved wooden box beside her. From it, she took out a smooth, dark stone, no bigger than Elara's thumb. As she held it, the stone began to pulse with a faint, internal light, like a tiny heart beating. This is a star gem, Elara. It was given to my grandmother by a wise old owl, who said it would hum when the true starlight was strong, and fall silent when it was weak. For generations, it has glowed brightly. Lyra's voice wavered. But in the last few weeks, its light has grown faint, just as you described, and tonight, it is almost completely dark. The tiny, struggling pulse of light from the star gem was confirmation, a cold dread settling in Elara's stomach. Her unique perception wasn't a trick of her imagination, it was a warning. The magic that sustained their world was faltering. What can be done? Elara asked, her voice imbued with a sudden, fierce determination. Can the Lumina be found? Can the starlight be rekindled? Lyra sighed, a sound like the wind through dry leaves. The legends speak of a starchild, a rare soul born with an innate connection to the true starlight, one who can perceive its ebb and flow where others cannot. They say only a starchild can truly understand the whispers of the dying light, and perhaps guide it back to its full glory. Her gaze met Elara's, steady and profound. I think, my dear Elara, that you are that starchild. Elara felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. A starchild. Hi. The thought was overwhelming, yet it resonated deep within her, a recognition of something she had always intuitively known. Her connection to the stars, her ability to hear their songs, her unique perception of their fading light, it all made sense now. But what do I do, grandmother? Lyra reached into the folds of her tunic and pulled out a delicate silver locket, shaped like a 5-pointed star. It was ancient, tarnished with time, but when she handed it to Elara, a faint, warm pulse emanated from it. This locket belonged to the first starchild. According to the oldest tales, it is said to point the way when the path is lost, and to guide the bearer towards the source of the true starlight. Its light will be fainter now, but it will still whisper to you. Elara clutched the locket, feeling its warmth spread through her palm. The weight of responsibility was immense, but so was the surge of purpose. She had to do something. She couldn't stand by and watch her beautiful, magical world fade into silence. The source of the true starlight is said to lie beyond the shimmering mountains, Lyra continued, deep within a hidden realm, perhaps even within the heart of a forgotten star. But the first step, the legends say, is always through the Whispering Woods. It is a place of ancient power, where the veil between worlds is thinnest. You must seek the Moon-Petal Grove first. It is said to be a place where the Lumina sometimes leave behind echoes of their presence. Elara looked towards the dark silhouette of the Whispering Woods, stretching out beyond Lyra's willow home. The woods were beautiful by day, filled with chattering sprites and sunlight, but by night they held a reputation for deep mystery, ancient secrets, and paths that twisted and turned on their own accord. Few dared to venture deep into its heart after dusk. It will be a long journey, little one, Lyra warned, her voice soft. Full of trials and wonders, the woods themselves will test your spirit, but you carry the heart of the starlight within you. Trust your intuition, listen to the whispers of the fading magic, and let the locket be your guide. She pressed a small, intricately woven basket into Elara's hands, filled with dried glowberries, preserved dream fruit, and a flask of pure spring water. For your strength and your dreams. Elara nodded, her mind already racing with the enormity of her task. She hugged her grandmother tightly, feeling the frail strength of her embrace. I will find the true starlight, grandmother. I will bring its light back. With a deep breath, Elara stepped out of Lyra's home and into the encroaching night. The air was cool and still, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant pine. The stars above, though dimmer to her eyes, still sparkled with a fragile beauty. She fastened the silver locket around her neck. It rested against her skin, a comforting, warm presence. She could feel a faint, almost imperceptible pull, a gentle hum guiding her towards the darkest edge of the forest. The entrance to the Whispering Woods was a grand archway formed by two ancient moss-covered oaks, their branches intertwining like gnarled fingers. The path beyond was not a path at all, but a tapestry of roots and fallen leaves, barely visible in the faint starlight. As Elara stepped beneath the arch, a shiver, not of cold but of profound change, went through her. The air grew heavier, thicker, with unspoken magic. The trees here were different from those in Whisperwind Dale. They were taller, their boughs laden with strange, luminous fungi that pulsed with a slow, rhythmic beat. The whisper moss on the forest floor was even fainter here, almost entirely without sparkle, confirming her fears about the fading starlight. She could hear the rustle of unseen creatures, the drip of water from unseen leaves, and the soft, almost imperceptible sigh of the wind weaving through the ancient canopy. The locket around her neck vibrated gently, a constant, subtle tug. It pulled her deeper, past trees whose bark resembled sleeping faces, past glowing pools that reflected the sparse starlight like shattered mirrors. The woods were not menacing, not truly, but they were vast and ancient, humming with a power that felt both sacred and slightly melancholic. Suddenly, a small, shimmering creature, no bigger than her thumb, fluttered past her face. It was a moon moth, its wings dusted with what looked like powdered starlight, but its usual vibrant glow was muted, almost transparent. It flew erratically for a moment, then seemed to pause, hovering before her as if in recognition. Its antennae twitched, then it slowly, deliberately, began to lead the way, its faint light a beacon in the deepening gloom. Elara followed, her heart a drum of anticipation and wonder, knowing this was only the very beginning of her journey into the heart of the fading starlight. Elara followed, her heart a drum of anticipation and wonder, knowing this was only the very beginning of her journey into the heart of the fading starlight. The little moth, her fragile beacon, led her away from the familiar, manicured paths of the garden, and into the older, wilder parts of the manor grounds. Here, ancient oak trees, their branches like gnarled arms, reached towards the sky, their leaves usually shimmering with captured starlight, now held only a dull, earthy green. The air grew cooler, carrying with it a scent of damp earth and fading magic, a subtle melancholy that settled upon Elara's shoulders like a cloak. The path beneath her feet, once a clear gravel track, dissolved into a winding trail of moss and tangled roots. The moon, usually a silver lantern in the sky, was obscured by a veil of wispy gray clouds, casting the world in a perpetual twilight. Only the moth's faint, pulsing light, like a dying ember, illuminated the immediate vicinity. Its glow, though weak, seemed to push back the encroaching gloom, revealing fleeting glimpses of things that stirred in the shadows. Small, luminous fungi clinging to tree bark, eyes that glittered and then vanished, and the delicate, unfurling fronds of ferns that usually pulsed with a soft inner luminescence now lay dim and dormant. As they delved deeper, the silence became profound. The usual symphony of night creatures, the chirr of crickets, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of unseen paws, was absent. It was a silence that felt heavy, almost suffocating, as if the very sound had been drawn away along with the light. Elara found herself holding her breath, listening not for noise, but for the absence of it, a hollow ache in the fabric of the night. The trees grew closer, their canopies interlocking to form a vaulted ceiling, blocking out even the meager moonlight. Here, in what felt like the heart of the ancient wood, the trees were unlike any she had seen. Their bark was a swirling tapestry of deep indigo and violet, and their branches, thick and twisted, usually bore tiny bell-shaped flowers that chimed with starlight. Now, these bells were closed and silent, their petals shriveled and gray. The moth fluttered ahead, its movements more purposeful now. It dipped and swayed, guiding her around moss-covered stones and over roots that snaked across the forest floor, like slumbering serpents. Elara, usually cautious, found an unfamiliar bravery blooming within her. This was not a scary darkness. It was a sorrowful one, and she felt an intense protective urge to understand its pain. They reached a small clearing, circular and ancient, where the trees formed a perfect ring. In the center stood a single colossal oak, its trunk wider than 3 Elaras standing side by side. This tree, she knew, was called the Whispering Sentinel Dart. Legends said it was as old as the manor itself, its roots reaching deep into the earth's magical heart, its leaves once catching the very first starlight that fell upon this land. But now, the Whispering Sentinel was utterly dark. Its bark was a muted charcoal, its vast canopy a silhouette against the barely lighter sky, and the shimmering mosses that usually adorned its branches were brittle and brown. The moth circled the great tree once, twice, then settled gently on a patch of dead moss near its base. Its faint glow cast a tiny trembling halo on the rough bark. Elara approached, her hand reaching out instinctively. The bark felt cool and dry, not vibrant and alive as she imagined it should be. Whispering Sentinel, she murmured, her voice a soft echo in the vast silence. What has happened to you? As if in answer, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer pulsed just beneath the moth. Elara knelt, peering closer. It wasn't the moth, but something else, a tiny crevice in the bark, barely visible. As she focused, a wisp of faint light, like exhaled breath, spiraled from the crevice. It solidified for a moment, forming a miniature, ethereal image, a spiral of iridescent dust, swirling inwards, then vanishing as if sucked into an unseen void. The image repeated, a silent ephemeral whisper of something being drawn away. What was that? Elara breathed, her eyes wide. From the crevice, a tiny high-pitched hum resonated, so subtle she almost missed it. Then slowly, painstakingly, a sliver of the moss on the bark began to lift. Beneath it, something stirred. It was small, no bigger than her thumb, and covered in a fine velvety moss that matched the tree. 2 tiny luminous eyes, like chips of pale emerald, blinked open. It had delicate, leaf-like ears that twitched, and nimble, twig-thin limbs. It was a creature she had only heard about in hushed tales, an Echo Weaver Dantuo. Echo Weavers were said to be the keepers of fading magic, creatures born from the echoes of ancient spells and the forgotten whispers of the land. They tended to places where magic dwindled, attempting to mend the ethereal threads that bound the world together. This one, however, seemed as weary and diminished as the forest around them. The Echo Weaver unfurled itself fully, revealing a tiny, intricate pattern of glowing runes on its back, though even these were faint, like embers struggling in the wind. It looked up at Elara, its emerald eyes filled with an ancient sorrow. The heartwood, it weakens, a voice echoed, not in her ears but directly in her mind, a gentle, melancholic whisper that felt like a sigh. The starlight, it is drawn away, not faded, child, but siphoned. Elara gasped. Siphoned? By whom? Or what? The Echo Weaver slowly extended a twig-like arm, pointing a delicate finger towards the shimmering moth resting beside it. De Eastar Mothhain. It seeks the source, the heart of the starlight, the Ethelgard wellspring. It is there the threads unravel. Ethelgard, wellspring? Elara repeated, the name resonating with a forgotten power. Where is it, and what is unraveling the threads? The Echo Weaver sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of ages. Deep within the Wigglimmering peaks, beyond the wild mire, a journey fraught with shadow, child. The path itself resists those who seek to mend what is broken. Its tiny head shook slowly. The what is an ancient hunger, a being of shadow and forgotten dreams. It feeds, it grows, and as it consumes the starlight it dims the very essence of our world. Elara felt a chill deeper than the night air. An ancient hunger, a being of shadow. This was far more serious than just a natural fading. This was an active threat. And the star moth? She asked, looking at her silent guide. It is one of the last guardians of the wellspring, bound to its light. As the wellspring dims, so too does its glow. It cannot speak, but it remembers the way. It remembers the sacred path, though even that path is now obscured by the encroaching gloom. The Echo Weaver looked at Elara, its emerald eyes piercing. You carry a spark, a resonance with the starlight. It calls to you. It senses your hope. You are chosen, Elara, not by fate, but by empathy. You feel the world's quiet sorrow. Elara felt a flush spread across her cheeks. Chosen? She was just a girl who loved stories and found comfort in the night sky. But the moth had sought her out, and now this ancient creature was speaking to her. The weight of its words settled upon her, heavy and momentous. I don't know what I can do, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I don't have magic like the stories. Magic is not always in grand spells, little one, the Echo Weaver whispered. It is in intention, in belief, in the courage to step into the unknown. The star moth guides. I can offer guidance where I can, for my roots still reach into the whispering sentinel. But I cannot leave this place. My purpose is to tend to the echoes here. You must be the feet, the eyes, the hope. It paused, then added, the path to the glimmering peaks lies north, through the wide grove of silent whispers, then across the veiled mire. Be wary, for the shadow being's influence grows with every siphoned stardrop. It twists the land, creating illusions and traps for those who would interfere. Elara looked from the tiny moss-covered Echo Weaver to the star moth, whose faint light seemed to pulse with renewed determination. The silence of the forest no longer felt empty, but pregnant with anticipation. A vast daunting journey lay ahead. Wand. I will go, Elara said, her voice stronger now, a new resolve hardening in her heart. I will follow this star moth. I will find the Ethelgard wellspring, and I will try to help. The Echo Weaver gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Then journey swiftly, Elara. Time is a thread that unravels quickly in the fading light. With that, the star moth lifted from the bark, its wings beating a silent rhythm, and began to drift northwards. Elara, taking one last look at the ancient Echo Weaver, who was already beginning to recede back into the protective moss of the whispering sentinel, took a deep breath and followed. The grove of silent whispers lived up to its name. The trees here were taller, their trunks smooth and pale like polished bone. Their leaves, usually a delicate, translucent silver, now hung limp and gray, rustling only with the faintest sigh of a breeze. Here, the gloom was even deeper, a tangible presence that seemed to press in on all sides. The star moth, though still a faint guide, seemed to struggle more. Its light flickered, sometimes dimming so precariously that Elara had to pause, her heart pounding, until its faint luminescence returned. She worried for it, this brave little creature, carrying such a heavy burden. As they moved through the grove, Elara began to notice strange things. Shadows that seemed to writhe just at the edge of her vision, dissolving when she turned to face them. Whispers, so soft they could have been the wind, curling around her ears, speaking forgotten words in a language she almost, but not quite understood. They tugged at her thoughts, tried to plant seeds of doubt. Go back, little one. The darkness is too vast. You are only a child. Elara pressed on, clutching the simple, smooth stone she always carried in her pocket, a small, grey river stone, worn smooth by water and time, a grounding presence. She focused on the star moth, on its steady if fragile progress. She remembered the Echo Weaver's words. Magic is in intention, in belief, she believed. She had to. The grove of silent whispers seemed to stretch on endlessly, each step bringing a new challenge. Roots rose like barricades, forcing her to scramble over them. Patches of sickly sweet-smelling mist materialized, disorienting her senses until the moth's light cut through it, reminding her of the true direction. She learned to trust the moth implicitly, even when her own eyes told her a different path seemed easier or safer. After what felt like hours, the grove began to thin. The trees, though still tall, gave way to a wider, more open space, but this offered little relief. They had reached the ye-veiled mire. The mire was a vast expanse of murky water, dotted with islands of tangled reeds and gnarled, skeletal trees whose branches reached like grasping hands. A thick, pearlescent mist hung low over the water, shimmering faintly with an unnatural sickly green light. This was not the gentle fog of morning, but a clinging, heavy vapor that seemed to leach warmth and color from everything it touched. The star moth hovered at the edge of the mire, its light almost swallowed by the oppressive mist. It pulsed erratically, as if hesitant, then with a sudden surge of what seemed like pure will, it darted forward, its faint glow cutting a thin line through the swirling vapor. Elara followed, her feet sinking into the soft, squelching earth at the mire's edge. The ground here was treacherous, a spongy network of moss and decaying vegetation. She had to pick her way carefully, testing each step before committing her weight. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something stagnant and ancient. As she ventured deeper into the veiled mire, the mist grew thicker, swirling around her, making it impossible to see more than a few feet in any direction. The star moth was her only guide, a tiny, struggling beacon in the suffocating gray-green. The whispers from the grove returned, louder now, more insistent, twisting into shapes of doubt and fear. Lost, forgotten, consumed, there is no hope. She stumbled, her foot catching on a submerged root, and plunged knee-deep into the cold, murky water. A gasp escaped her lips, the icy shock momentarily stealing her breath. She struggled to regain her footing, the mud sucking at her boots. Suddenly, a pair of glowing eyes, huge and yellow, blinked open in the mist directly ahead of her. They were accompanied by a low, guttural growl that vibrated through the water. Elara froze, her heart leaping into her throat. This was no illusion. This was real. The star moth, reacting with surprising speed, zipped towards the eyes, its faint light flaring for a moment, then retreating, as if trying to distract the unseen creature. The growl intensified, and a large, shadowy form began to emerge from the mist, its scales shimmering with the same sickly green light as the mire. It was a gloom-fang lurker, a creature of the deep mire, usually shy and nocturnal, but now, twisted by the fading starlight, more aggressive, more desperate. Its teeth, Elara could dimly make out, were long and needle-sharp. Terror threatened to overwhelm her. She was alone, in a strange, dangerous place, facing a creature of nightmare. But then a thought, clear and sharp, cut through her fear. Why, this star moth is trying to protect me. This little creature, barely a flicker of light, was putting itself in harm's way. She couldn't let it be in vain. Taking a shaky breath, Elara remembered the Echo Weaver's words. Magic is an intention. What was her intention? To protect the starlight. To help. To be brave. She looked at the star moth, which was now darting around the lurker's head, trying to draw its attention. Then she looked at the lurker, its massive head slowly turning towards her, its yellow eyes fixing on her. Suddenly, an idea sparked. The lurker was drawn to the star moth's light, but perhaps it was also blinded by the mire's oppressive gloom, relying more on sound and movement. Taking another deep breath, Elara reached into her pocket and pulled out the smooth river stone. It offered no magic, no defense, but holding it, she felt a surge of grounded determination. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing not on the fear, but on the image of the vibrant glowing trees of her manor, on the clear, star-dusted night sky. She focused on the pure, untainted light of the starlight. Then, opening her eyes, she looked past the lurker, towards where she knew the star moth was trying to lead. Glimmering peaks, she repeated in her mind. Etelgard, Wellspring. 1-2. With a surge of desperate courage, Elara didn't run away. Instead, she took a bold step forward, directly towards the lurker, not looking at its fearsome face but past it, towards her destination. She didn't have magic to fight it, but she had a will to get past it. The lurker, surprised by her sudden unexpected movement, paused. Its head tilted, its growl faltering. Most prey ran. This one was walking towards it. Elara continued, her steps slow but deliberate, one foot in front of the other, her eyes fixed on the distant, unseen peaks, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. She focused on the star moth, which had now stopped its frantic darting, and was hovering near the path she was attempting to forge. Its light, though still weak, seemed to steady, a tiny beacon of quiet encouragement. The lurker watched her, its yellow eyes unblinking. It let out another low rumble, a sound of confusion rather than aggression. It seemed unsure how to react to this small, determined human who walked with such purpose through its domain, seemingly ignoring its presence. Elara kept walking, the murky water sucking at her boots with each step. She could feel the lurker's breath, damp and heavy, on her face as she passed by its immense head. She dared not look directly at it, focusing only on the faint, unwavering light of the star moth. The creature was enormous, its scales rough, its presence overwhelming. Yet, she walked past it, a testament to a courage she hadn't known she possessed. Finally, she felt its presence recede behind her. The growl faded, swallowed by the mist. She glanced back quickly, but saw only the swirling green vapor. The lurker had allowed her to pass. Perhaps it was too surprised. Perhaps it sensed something in her resolve. Or perhaps the fading starlight had dulled its predatory instincts. Elara let out a shuddering breath, her legs feeling like jelly. She had faced a creature of the mire, and survived. A tiny triumphant spark ignited within her, a flicker of strength she hadn't known was there. The star moth, as if sensing her renewed spirit, seemed to gain a little strength itself. Its glow, though still fragile, became a touch more consistent. It led her onwards, through the remaining stretches of the veiled mire, where the mist began to thin, and the ground slowly firmed underfoot. As the mist finally cleared, Elara looked up and gasped. In the distance, rising majestically against the barely lit sky, were the glimmering peaks. They weren't just mountains, they were colossal spires of crystal and rock, their facets catching the faintest hint of cosmic light, shimmering with faint ethereal blues and purples. Even from this distance, she could feel a powerful ancient energy emanating from them. But even these magnificent peaks were not untouched by the fading starlight. Many of the crystalline spires that should have blazed with inner light were dull, their surfaces clouded and opaque. The vibrant hues were muted, as if seen through a veil of sorrow. The star moth flew steadily now, directly towards the highest, most central peak, a massive edifice that seemed to touch the very heavens. That, Elara realized, must be where the Ethelgard wellspring resided. The journey was far from over. Ahead lay the daunting climb of the glimmering peaks, a landscape of raw magic and ancient secrets, now touched by the encroaching shadow. But Elara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had faced fear, pushed through uncertainty, and found a strength she hadn't known she possessed. With the star moth as her guide, and the echo weaver's words as her compass, she was ready to face whatever the glimmering peaks held. The heart of the fading starlight awaited. The heart of the fading starlight awaited. Elara and the star moth left the echo weaver's clearing, the hum of ancient power still tingling in the air. The forest canopy, once a comforting embrace, now felt like a prelude to the vastness ahead. As they ascended the gentle slopes leading out of the whispering woods, the trees began to thin, their leaves giving way to hardy, wind-stunted pines clinging to exposed rock. The air grew crisper, carrying the scent of frost and stone, a stark contrast to the verdant earth they had just left. Then, they emerged. Before them, piercing the twilight sky, rose the glimmering peaks. They were not merely mountains of rock and ice, but colossal spires of light-infused crystal and ancient living stone, their jagged summits piercing the clouds like shattered jewels. Each peak pulsed with an inner luminescence, casting long ethereal shadows that stretched across the valleys below. Vines of pure, unblemished starlight seemed to run through their very core, glowing with soft blues, silvers and purples, a breathtaking spectacle that stole Elara's breath. But even from this distance, she could see the insidious shadow at work. Patches of the brilliant crystal were dulled, their light muted to a sickly gray like a fading ember. Some entire slopes seemed cloaked in a perpetual unnatural gloom, a coldness that seemed to leach the very essence of magic from the air. "They are magnificent," Elara whispered, the words catching in her throat, a mixture of awe and trepidation. The star moth perched on her shoulder pulsed with a brighter light, its antennae twitching towards the highest, most radiant peak, a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching dimness. This was the place. The journey to the foothills of the glimmering peaks was a slow, deliberate trek. The ground became increasingly uneven, strewn with loose scree and shards of what looked like solidified moonlight. Here, strange, resilient plants thrived, mosses that glowed with a faint internal light, fungi that pulsed in gentle rhythms, and hardy, silver-leafed shrubs that seemed to drink the very starlight from the air. As they began their ascent, the path grew steeper, winding through narrow passes where the wind howled with a mournful, ancient sound. Elara had to focus, placing each foot carefully, her muscles aching with the unfamiliar strain. The thin air tugged at her lungs, but the purity of it also invigorated her, sharpening her senses. The star moth became her indispensable guide, its light intensifying whenever she approached a hidden crevice or a patch of treacherous crumbling rock. It would flutter ahead, illuminating faint trails that Elara's eyes alone might have missed, or hovering over invisible footholds. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the lowest peaks, painting the sky in fiery hues that struggled to compete with the mountain's inner glow, they found themselves facing a colossal wall of crystal. It shimmered with an unbearable brilliance, reflecting the fading daylight in 1,000 dazzling facets. There was no visible path, only the sheer, unyielding face of the rock. Elara felt a surge of despair. "How do we get past this?" she murmured, tracing a finger along the cool, smooth surface. It felt like glass, but was harder than any stone. The star moth left her shoulder, circling the crystal wall twice, its light now a vibrant emerald green. Then it settled on a specific point, its tiny legs pressing against the crystal. Slowly, impossibly, a faint, almost invisible seam began to appear in the air, rippling like heat haze. As Elara watched, mesmerized, the seam solidified into a shimmering, translucent archway, just wide enough for her to pass through. It was an illusion, a trick of light and magic woven into the very fabric of the peaks. "Thank you, little one," Elara breathed, stepping through the archway. On the other side, the path continued, winding upward through a hidden gorge, the air here still and strangely warm. The star moth, now back on her shoulder, pulsed proudly. Deeper into the peaks, the landscape grew more otherworldly. They entered a region where the very stones seemed alive, ancient and wise. One evening, after a particularly arduous climb, Elara found a small, sheltered alcove to rest. As she huddled, wrapped in her cloak, the star moth nestled close, its warmth a comfort against the increasing chill. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the stone around them, not threatening but deep and resonant, like a vast, slow heartbeat. Before her, the wall of the alcove began to shift. Great slabs of crystalline rock, previously indistinguishable from the surrounding mountain, slowly pulled apart, revealing a hidden chamber within. The air inside shimmered, filled with motes of pure light, and a faint, sweet scent of ancient earth and blooming night flowers. In the center of the chamber, a being of living stone and light awaited. It was immense, formed from the very heart of the mountain, its body a tapestry of polished quartz, sparkling geodes, and veins of raw, glowing ore. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but far grander, with broad, heavy shoulders and hands like carved boulders. Its face, though unmoving, emanated a profound serenity, and its eyes, twin pools of liquid starlight, regarded Elara with an ageless wisdom. This was a stone sentinel, one of the ancient guardians of the glimmering peaks. "Welcome, Elara of the Whispering Woods," the sentinel's voice rumbled, not from its mouth, but from the very stones of the chamber, vibrating through Elara's bones. "We have felt your purpose, and seen the light of the star moth." Elara, though momentarily awestruck, found her voice. "Great sentinel, I seek the heart of the fading starlight. Its light grows dim and the shadow spreads." The sentinel's starlight eyes seemed to deepen. Indeed, the shadow, born of forgotten fears and neglected dreams, seeks to smother all illumination. The starlight, which nurtures the very essence of our world, is its greatest prize. It paused, its gaze sweeping over Elara. "You carry the Echo Weaver's words. They speak of balance, of understanding, of listening to the unheard." "They guide me," Elara affirmed, feeling a familiar warmth spread from her chest, where the Echo Weaver's influence resided. "The peaks are a reflection of the starlight's power," the sentinel continued. "Every crystal, every glowing moss, every current of pure air is a thread of its being. To find its heart, you must learn to see with more than your eyes, and hear with more than your ears. The shadow that touches these peaks is not merely a lack of light. It is a forgetting, a silence that swallows the ancient songs." It raised one massive hand, and from its palm, a delicate, crystalline flower bloomed, its petals unfurling in slow motion, each one catching and refracting the chamber's internal light. This is a star blossom, born of the deepest starlight. Its essence is pure memory. The shadow seeks to make us forget what once was, to silence the echoes of joy and wonder. How do I fight forgetting? Elara asked, her gaze fixed on the beautiful, fragile bloom. By remembering, the sentinel rumbled. By carrying the light of hope, and by listening for the echoes that the shadow tries to drown. Do not fear the silence, but seek the song beneath it. The path ahead lies through the crystallized forests, where the very trees sing of ancient times. Heed their silent melodies. With a final gentle rumble, the sentinel's form began to slowly dissolve back into the stone wall, the chamber's entrance closing, leaving Elara once more in the alcove, but with a new understanding. The star blossom, now fully formed, lay in her outstretched hand, pulsing with a soft, comforting glow. Clutching the star blossom, Elara pressed onward. The glimmering peak seemed to grow taller, more intricate, as she ascended. Soon she found herself at the edge of the crystallized forests. These were not forests of wood and leaf, but of towering, slender spires of crystal, some as clear as glass, others shimmering with internal rainbows, still others pulsing with soft bioluminescent light. The ground beneath them was made of countless shattered crystal fragments, crunching softly underfoot like frozen snow. Navigating the crystallized forests was a challenge unlike any Elara had faced. The light bouncing off a million surfaces was dazzling and disorienting. Every sound echoed endlessly, creating a cacophony of whispers and clicks that made it hard to discern direction. The trees themselves, though beautiful, were sharp and brittle, their delicate branches forming an intricate, often impassable maze. The star moth, however, seemed to thrive here. Its light, interacting with the crystal, created mesmerizing patterns, swirling nebulas of color that danced across the crystalline trunks, or shimmering pathways that seemed to materialize just for Elara. The star blossom in her hand also helped, its gentle glow cutting through the visual clutter, pointing towards the clearest, safest routes. Elara remembered the sentinel's words, heed their silent melodies. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the distracting light and sound, and focused on the subtler vibrations, the faint hum that resonated through the crystalline structures. She put her hand against a particularly tall, iridescent spire. Beneath her palm, she felt a faint, rhythmic pulse. It was a song, not of sound, but of pure energy, of life. Each crystal tree had its own unique vibration, and by learning to distinguish them, Elara began to find her way. The star moth would occasionally land on a specific crystal, its light resonating with the tree's song, confirming Elara's intuitive choice. Sometimes, she would encounter patches of the forest where the crystals were dull, opaque, and brittle, snapped off at their bases, as if by a great unseen force. These were places where the shadow had taken hold, silencing the crystalline songs, leaving only a chill void. Here, the star moth's light would dim slightly, and the star blossom's glow would flicker, as if struggling against the cold. Elara would hurry through these sections, her heart aching for the lost beauty. After what felt like days, winding through the labyrinthine crystal trees, she emerged into a wide open expanse. But this was not a clearing. It was a precipice overlooking a vast gaping abyss, the Whispering Chasm. It cleaved to the very heart of the peaks, a monumental canyon whose depths were lost in swirling mists, echoing with an ethereal chorus of faint, indistinguishable voices. The air above it vibrated with a palpable energy, a mixture of ancient power and something else, something sad and profound. There was no bridge, no visible way across. The opposite side seemed impossibly far, a distant wall of shimmering crystal, barely visible through the swirling mist. The star moth fluttered nervously, its light pulsing with a soft, anxious rhythm. "This must be it," Elara whispered, recalling the Echo Weaver's words about seeking the unheard. The whispers from the chasm were not just wind. They were fragmented memories, echoes of the starlight itself perhaps, or of those who had sought it before. She sat at the edge, the star blossom glowing steadily in her hand, trying to make sense of the cacophony. The whispers were like 1,000 different dreams, overlapping and indistinct. She closed her eyes, letting her mind open, remembering the Echo Weaver's instruction to listen with your heart, not just your ears. Slowly, painstakingly, the individual voices began to separate. She heard faint laughter, the rustle of ancient wings, the solemn pronouncements of long-lost sages, and the gentle sigh of the wind through forgotten forests. And then, a clearer voice emerged from the multitude, a soft, melodic hum that seemed to resonate with the star blossom in her hand. It was a fragment of a lullaby, sung in a language Elara didn't know, yet understood with a deep, intuitive knowing. As the lullaby grew clearer, repeating a gentle, rhythmic phrase, Elara noticed something remarkable. The swirling mists in the chasm directly below her began to coalesce. Wisps of pearlescent vapor gathered, swirling and thickening, until they formed a faint, translucent pathway that stretched across the abyss. It was ethereal, shimmering with inner light, barely substantial, yet undeniably there. It was a bridge woven from starlight and memory, manifesting only to those who could truly listen. Taking a deep breath, Elara stood. The star moth, sensing her resolve, flew ahead, its light illuminating the spectral bridge. Elara took the first step. The mist beneath her foot felt cool, like walking on a cloud, yet it held her weight. Each step was a leap of faith, an act of trust in the unseen path. The whispers of the chasm grew louder as she crossed, a constant murmur of forgotten wisdom and ancient sorrow, but the lullaby, now strong and clear, kept her focused, guiding her through the intangible expanse. Halfway across, a sudden, chilling gust of wind swept through the chasm, carrying with it not mist, but tendrils of the encroaching shadow. It was a cold, oppressive darkness that seemed to drain the color from the air, threatening to unravel the delicate bridge. The whispers around her turned frantic, filled with fear and despair. The star moth flickered, its light struggling against the gloom. The star blossom's glow dimmed precariously. Elara felt a cold dread seep into her heart, a sudden, paralyzing fear that she would fall, that all her efforts would be for naught. But then the lullaby from the chasm swelled, stronger than before, and the echo weaver's words resonated in her mind. Gido, not fear the silence, but seek the song beneath it. The lullaby was the song. It was the memory, the hope that the shadow sought to extinguish. Clutching the star blossom tightly, Elara forced herself to focus on the lullaby, humming its melody under her breath, letting its gentle rhythm fill her. With each note, the shadow's tendrils seemed to recoil slightly. The star moth's light flared brighter, pushing back the gloom. The star blossom pulsed with renewed vigor. Drawing strength from the music, Elara quickened her pace, her determination burning away the fear. She reached the other side, collapsing onto solid ground, her heart pounding, but a triumphant warmth spreading through her veins. The misty bridge dissolved behind her, leaving only the endless whispers of the chasm. She had faced the shadow's chill, and had not faltered. The final ascent to the upper reaches of the glimmering peaks was the most demanding yet. The air was thin and bitingly cold, biting at her exposed skin. The very stones here seemed to vibrate with a raw, primal magic, humming with power. Patches of eternal snow clung to the highest ledges, glistening like diamond dust under the distant stars, which now seemed impossibly close, huge and brilliant in the inky blackness. The signs of the starlight's fading were more pronounced here. Entire ridges were cloaked in a perpetual twilight, their crystals gray and inert, their magical hum silenced. The star moth, now almost constantly alight, pulsed with an urgent, desperate energy, guiding Elara through these darkened zones, its light a small, defiant beacon. The star blossom in her hand emitted a steady, warm glow, a constant reminder of the memories she carried. As they climbed higher, Elara began to see structures unlike any she had encountered. These were not natural formations, but ancient, colossal edifices of polished crystal and shimmering metals, reaching towards the heavens. They were partly overgrown with glowing mosses, partly consumed by the shadow's gloom, but their original grandeur was undeniable. These were the forgotten temples and observatories of a civilization that once lived in harmony with the starlight, now crumbling into silent ruins. One particularly massive structure, a spire of pure radiant quartz, stood taller than all the others, piercing the cloud layer. It was mostly untouched by the shadow, its surface shimmering with an intense internal light, like a colossal diamond. At its very summit, a faint, rhythmic pulse of light emanated, a slow, fading beat, the heart of the starlight, or at least its most visible manifestation. The star moth flew directly towards it, its light almost blinding in its intensity, circling the base of the great spire. Elara followed, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her legs burning with effort. She reached the foot of the spire, a vast, smooth platform of dark, resonant stone. Here the air crackled with power, and the hum of magic was almost overwhelming. Before her, carved into the base of the spire, was a grand archway, shimmering with residual starlight. But it was not unguarded. Two colossal figures, humanoid but formed from swirling nebulae of starlight and shadow, stood sentinel. They were the celestial guardians, ancient beings tasked with protecting the starlight sanctuary. One figure pulsed with radiant silver light, its form constantly shifting like stardust caught in a breeze. The other was cloaked in a deeper shifting shadow, not malevolent, but watchful, its form hinting at the very edge of oblivion. They were a balance, a representation of the starlight's light and its encroaching darkness. As Elara approached, the luminous guardian stepped forward, its form solidifying slightly, its voice a gentle chime. "You have come far, little star seeker. You carry the moth of guiding light, the blossom of ancient memory, and the echo of forgotten songs. But the heart of the starlight lies beyond. What do you bring to mend its fading pulse?" Elara looked from the luminous guardian to the shadowy one, then to the star moth on her shoulder and the star blossom in her hand. She had faced trials, listened to whispers, and remembered forgotten melodies. She had found courage within herself. But what could she e'en give? The shadowy guardian stirred, its form deepening, and a chill began to spread from its presence, threatening to extinguish the star moth's light. Elara felt a renewed sense of urgency. The starlight was truly fading, and the shadow was here, at its very threshold. She had to act. She had to find the answer. The final challenge awaited. Elara's mind raced, a frantic hummingbird beating against the cage of her thoughts. What could she give? She had no ancient artifacts, no potent spells, no hoard of treasures. All she possessed were the memories of her journey, the whispers she'd heard, the melodies she'd hummed, the courage she'd found. Was that enough? Could something so intangible replenish the failing heart of the starlight? The chill intensified, biting at her skin, threatening to freeze the very hope in her chest. The star moth, once so vibrant, now flickered like a dying candle, its ethereal glow struggling against the encroaching gloom. The shadow guardian swelled, an abyss of forgotten light, its form now so vast it seemed to devour the space around it, leaving only a cold, silent void. This was not a creature of malice, she realized with a jolt, but a creature of absence. It was the sentinel of the void that forms when light is forgotten, when dreams are left unspoken, when hope runs dry. It wasn't trying to destroy the starlight. It was merely being the emptiness that threatened to consume it. Elara looked down at the star blossom in her hand. It pulsed faintly, a tiny defiant heartbeat in the growing darkness. It was beautiful, delicate, yet resilient. As she gazed at its shimmering petals, a whisper, clearer than any she'd heard before, unfurled in her mind. It wasn't from the woods, or the river, or the caves. It was from within. Give what you have learned, little dreamer. Give what you have become. What had she learned? She had learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the journey through it. She had learned that forgotten melodies could be remembered, that whispers held ancient truths, and that even the smallest light could guide the way. She had learned that her own heart, once timid, now held a reservoir of strength she never knew existed. The starlight wasn't just light, it was made of a dreamscape. It was woven from the threads of hope, spun from the golden dust of stories told and retold. And what was her journey, if not a story? What was her courage, if not a new thread of hope? She closed her eyes, clutching the star blossom to her chest. A deep breath filled her lungs, pushing back against the icy grip of the shadow. When she opened them again, her gaze was steady, resolute. She stepped forward, towards the heart of the shadow, towards the dying pulse of the starlight. "I have no treasures of gold or silver," she began, her voice trembling at first, then gaining strength, ringing clear in the oppressive silence. "I have no ancient spells or potent magic, but I have my journey. I have the whispers of the whispering woods teaching me patience and the language of leaves. I have the echoes of the river of dreams, showing me that every ripple carries a memory." As she spoke, A faint luminescence began to emanate from her, a soft, warm glow that pushed back the encroaching cold. The star blossom in her hand pulsed in rhythm with her words, its light growing, deepening. I have the courage I found in the crystal caves, facing the reflections of my own fears. I have the wisdom of the star moth, who showed me that even a tiny spark can light the way. I have the fear I overcame, and the hope I nurtured. Her voice now resonated with a quiet power, a melody of truth. I give you my story. I give you my hope. I give you the courage that bloomed in my heart. I give you Emmy. With each word, Elara poured her essence into the star blossom. She wasn't just speaking, she was weaving her memories, her emotions, her very being into its delicate petals. She remembered the thrill of adventure, the pang of doubt, the warmth of the star moth's presence, the chill of the shadow, and the unwavering belief that had carried her this far. It was a complete offering, a piece of her soul infused into the luminous bloom. The star blossom, once merely glowing, now blazed with an inner fire, radiating a spectrum of soft shifting colors, the greens of the forest, the blues of the river, the crystal whites, the silver of the star moth, and a vibrant, hopeful gold that was uniquely Elara's. It felt warm in her hand, almost alive, humming with the vibrant energy she had gifted it. The shadowy guardian, which had seemed so immense and unyielding, began to stir in a different way. It did not recoil in aggression, nor did it surge forward. Instead, its vast dark form began to ayasifta. The impenetrable blackness at its core seemed to ripple, to soften, as if the intense light of the star blossom was not burning it, but filling it. The cold, which had been so pervasive, receded, replaced by a gentle warmth emanating from the blossom. Elara extended her hand, the star blossom floating slowly, purposefully from her grasp. It drifted towards the very heart of the fading starlight, which lay just beyond the now receding shadow, a shimmering, barely visible nebula of faint, dying light. It was the nexus, the origin point of all the starlight that graced the night sky, and it was barely a whisper of its former glory. As the incandescent star blossom approached, the shadow guardian didn't disappear, but rather, dissolved. Its dark tendrils didn't vanish into nothingness, but transmuted into a shimmering, silvery mist that began to swirl around the blossom, embracing it. The mist was not cold or frightening. It felt like a sigh, a release, a long-held breath finally exhaled. The guardian hadn't been an enemy, but a vessel for the emptiness, a protector of the void that formed when the starlight itself forgot its purpose. It was not defeated, but nourished. The star blossom touched the failing nebula of starlight. There was no thunderous crash, no blinding flash. Instead, a wave of gentle warmth like sunlight after a long winter washed over Elara. The blossom seemed to melt, dissolving into 1,000 points of light that surged into the heart of the nebula. And then, it began. The starlight, which had been a mere shimmer, pulsed. A soft golden glow expanded outwards, pushing back the lingering vestiges of shadow. It pulsed again, stronger this time, and a vibrant cerulean blue laced through the gold. Then came emerald green, ruby red, amethyst purple, a kaleidoscope of hues, shimmering and swirling, weaving themselves into the fabric of the nebula. The light grew, not with a harsh intensity, but with a comforting, steady brilliance. It wasn't merely bright, it felt alive. Elara felt a profound sense of connection, as if every beat of her own heart was echoed in the expanding light. She saw not just light, but patterns forming within it, swirling galaxies, shimmering nebulae, distant planets, and closer still, the faint, flickering images of sleeping children, their faces serene, their dreams unfolding like silent films behind their closed eyelids. She saw the quiet wonder of a scholar poring over ancient texts, the vibrant joy of a musician composing a new melody, the determined hope of a gardener tending a single seed. The starlight wasn't just a celestial phenomenon. It was the collective tapestry of all living things' dreams, hopes, and stories. And it had faded because the world had grown too busy, too distracted, too quick to forget the importance of these quiet inner lights. It needed a new story, a fresh infusion of hope and courage to rekindle its flame. Elara, with her journey, her whispers, her melodies, and her brave heart, had provided exactly that. The star moth, now soaring with renewed vigor, danced through the vibrant starlight, its wings shimmering with pure joy. It brushed past Elara, its touch like a featherlight blessing. The air around her was warm, fragrant with an ethereal scent of night-blooming jasmine and distant stardust. Elara felt a deep peace settle over her, a quiet exhaustion mixed with an exhilarating sense of accomplishment. She looked up, and through the now brilliant starlight, she could see the vast expanse of the cosmos. The stars in the sky, which had grown dim and distant, now blazed with renewed intensity, twinkling like a million tiny diamonds scattered across an indigo velvet cloth. Each one pulsed with a soft, steady rhythm, carrying the dreams of the world. The shadowy guardian was gone, not annihilated, but transformed. Its emptiness had been filled, its stillness replaced by the gentle, swirling mist that now wove itself seamlessly into the vibrant starlight, a reminder that even forgotten things could be reabsorbed into the greater light, enriching it with their quiet presence. Elara understood now. The starlight wasn't something to be guarded equine our darkness, but something that needed the stories and dreams of every living heart to keep it shining. It was a living entity, constantly replenished by the hopes and fears, the joys and sorrows, the quiet courage of every soul. Her journey hadn't just saved the starlight, it had become a vital thread in its ongoing story. As she stood there, bathed in the comforting glow, Elara felt a gentle pull, a soft, irresistible current guiding her. The star moth, now radiant with its true full light, fluttered before her, its wings beckoning. She didn't walk, she simply allowed the renewed starlight to carry her, a gentle tide lifting her effortlessly. The journey back was swift and dreamlike, a kaleidoscope of starlit visions. She saw glimpses of her own world, now bathed in a richer, deeper starlight than she had ever known. The trees outside her window shimmered, the grass sparkled, and the very air hummed with a quiet, magical energy. Before she knew it, Elara was back in her own bed. The warmth of her blankets enveloped her, and the gentle scent of her pillow was a familiar comfort. But she wasn't quite the same. The adventure, the whispers, the courage, the giving, it had all etched itself into her very being. She looked towards her window. The moon, full and benevolent, hung in a sky ablaze with countless stars, each one a tiny beacon of hope and dreams. The starlight was not only saved but had bloomed anew, vibrant and strong, brighter than ever before. A soft silvery glow emanated from the windowsill. The star moth, smaller now but radiating a steady comforting light, perched there, its delicate antennae twitching contentedly. It offered her a final, silent nod of thanks before dissolving into a shower of silver dust that danced in the starlight and then faded. Elara smiled, a deep, contented smile that reached her eyes. She closed them, feeling the residual warmth of the starlight on her face and a profound sense of peace in her heart. She knew now that the starlight would continue to shine, as long as there were dreamers, storytellers, and courageous hearts willing to share their inner light. And as she drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, Elara knew that her own light, her own story, was now forever woven into the magnificent, shimmering tapestry of the starlight, watching over the world, reminding every sleeping child that their dreams, too, were a precious part of the magic that kept the stars alight. Sleep now, little one. Let your own dreams join the starlight, and know that your courage, like Elara's, is a light that can never truly fade.